Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. And you'll never miss a story again. They say love makes you blind. I used to think that was just a poetic exaggeration, something people said after things went wrong. But now I understand it doesn't just blind you, it deafens you. It makes you ignore things that are right in front of your face. It wraps you in the soft, glowing fog where everything seems fine, even when it's not. Her name is Claire. We met 2 years ago in the most mundane way possible, standing in line at a coffee shop, both annoyed that the person ahead of us didn't seem to know what they wanted. She turned to me and muttered, "It's coffee, not a philosophy." I laughed. She laughed. That's how it started. From the beginning, Claire was bright and confident with this energy that drew people to her. She worked in digital marketing, always glued to her phone, always 10 steps ahead of everyone. I'm a structural engineer, calculations, details, blueprints. We were opposites, but somehow it worked. By the time we got engaged, most of my friends said I'd never looked happier. I believed them. The wedding was set for late May. We were just 10 days out when I noticed the first inconsistency. It was a Thursday night. We were sitting on the couch, half watching a movie, half scrolling on our phones. I asked her if she had confirmed with the florist. She blinked like she didn't hear me, then she said, "Yeah, I talked to her yesterday." That should have been the end of it. But earlier that same day, her best friend Leah had mentioned in a group chat that she and Claire were supposed to call the florist together on Friday. It didn't register immediately, just a flicker, a background noise in my head. The next day, I brought it up again. "Did you and Leah finalize the flower arrangements?" I asked casually while washing dishes. She didn't look up from her phone. "Already done, we called her Wednesday." I dried my hands and tried to make my voice light. "That's weird. Leah said you two were calling her today." Claire looked up, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "No, Leah got the days mixed up. We spoke to the florist already. Maybe it was the way she said it. Too quickly, too definitively. Or maybe it was nothing." I told myself it was nothing. Weddings are stressful. People forget things. Still, something about it stayed with me. That weekend, we were supposed to drive out to her parents' house for a final dinner before the wedding. She told me she'd be coming straight from a client meeting downtown, and I should just meet her at their place. At her parents' house, everyone was in high spirits. Her dad poured wine, her mom talked about the guest list. Claire arrived about 40 minutes after me, cheeks flushed from the heat and supposedly from walking 10 blocks. When her Uber canceled, she said traffic was terrible. She said she was sorry I didn't think anything of it until Sunday night when I was folding laundry and found a receipt in the pocket of one of her jackets. A printed receipt from a place called Julian's, a bar across town from her meeting location. Time stamped 4:48 p.m. Friday, the same time she was supposed to be in that meeting. I stared at the receipt. Maybe she stopped there afterward. Maybe she was meeting a client. I told myself not to jump to conclusions, but now I had two small lies, or what looked like lies in a sense of something I couldn't shake. So I started paying closer attention. On Monday, she told me she had a video call with a client in London at 3 p.m., so she'd be working from home. I left for work early, then circled back on a hunch and parked down the street. I felt like an idiot, like one of those insecure people in bad movies, but I waited. At 2:50, I saw her leave the apartment building, dressed like she was going out not in business. Casual, but in the dark green dress she usually wore to dinner dates. She got into a rideshare I followed from a distance. She was dropped off near the waterfront. I parked a block away and walked until I had a line of sight. She was sitting on a bench alone at first. Then a man joined her. I didn't recognize him. He was about our age, maybe a little older, with dark hair and a neat beard. They hugged, not a friendly, "See you later" hug. A slow, close, intimate kind of hug. They sat there for 20 minutes. I stayed far enough not to be seen. She laughed at something he said. She leaned into him. They didn't kiss, but it didn't matter. I knew what I was seeing. When she finally left and walked back toward the ride chair, I drove off and didn't go home right away. I parked by the lake and sat there, staring out at the water, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The world felt smaller suddenly, like all the things I believed in, her honesty, our future, the wedding we planned, were shrinking into this tight little space. I couldn't escape. That night, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She came home with a smoothie and a kiss on my cheek and a sorry. The meeting ran late. I just nodded and smiled and told her it was fine. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions. Final guest count, DJ, confirmation, tux, pickup. All the while, I kept hearing my own voice in my head asking questions I didn't want answered. Who was he? Had this been going on for weeks, months? Was she planning to tell me or just carry it into the marriage? I didn't want to believe she was capable of something like this. Claire, who once cried when we missed a movie, because she thought I was mad. Claire, who lit up when I said I wanted kids someday. But people are like cities. You think you know the streets until you find an alley you've never walked through before and realize there's a whole part of town you never saw coming. I started digging. I looked through our shared calendar, checking for any patterns. I went back through her social media, not for obvious clues. There wouldn't be any but for gaps, inconsistencies, strange captions. There were a few posts that had changed location tags after being posted. Little things most people wouldn't notice. I checked our phone bill. Not proud of that. But when you're spiraling, rationality takes a back seat. There was a number that kept coming up, not saved in her contacts. A lot of short calls, many during the day, some at night when she said she was working late. I wrote it down, called it from a blocked number. It went to voicemail. Hey, you've reached Marcus. Leave a message? Marcus, I'd never heard her mention anyone by that name. I didn't leave a message. That night, I watched her sleep next to me. Her breathing steady, her face peaceful. I felt like I didn't know the woman lying beside me, and yet part of me still wanted this all to be some kind of misunderstanding, something we could fix. But the weight in my chest told me otherwise. The turning point came the next afternoon. She left her phone on the counter when she went to shower. A message popped up from Marcus. It said, "You looked amazing yesterday. Still thinking about you, no emojis, no context." Just that I didn't need more. I took a screenshot, sent it to myself, and for the first time, I started thinking seriously about what I would say to her when I confronted her, not if, when, because the wedding was 7 days away, and everything was about to fall apart. The next morning, I woke up before her. She lay curled on her side, one hand tucked beneath her cheek, breathing softly. It was the kind of peaceful moment I used to cherish. Now it felt like standing in the eye of a storm, pretending the winds weren't about to tear everything apart. I couldn't sit on it any longer. The message from Marcus was still fresh in my mind, pulsing like a bruise that wouldn't stop aching. But I wasn't going to blow up in anger. I wanted answers, not drama. I slipped out of bed dressed quietly and made her a cup of coffee, just like I always did. When she came into the kitchen wearing one of my hoodies and rubbing sleep from her eyes, I almost forgot what I was about to do. Almost. She smiled at me. "Thanks, babe." I watched her sip it. "Claire, who's Marcus?" She paused just for a split second, but it was enough. Her lips parted. "What Marcus?" I said, keeping my voice even. "You got a message from him yesterday. Said you looked amazing." She set the mug down too carefully. "Why were you reading my messages? I wasn't. It popped up on your screen. You left your phone out." I stared at her. You could answer the question instead of changing the subject. Claire blinked slowly like she was trying to get her bearings. He's a friend from work. He's part of the London client account. That's not what the message sounded like. It wasn't anything inappropriate. if that's what you're implying. Her tone sharpened. We had dinner to talk about the campaign strategy. I dressed up. Maybe he overstepped a little with the compliment. But that's all. Why didn't you tell me you were meeting him? She looked down. I didn't think it was a big deal. And with all the wedding stress, I didn't want to add anything unnecessary to the pile. My hands curled at my sides, so instead, you lied. She flinched. I hadn't raised my voice, but the word landed hard. I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you everything. That's not the same thing. Her eyes welled up, but I couldn't tell if it was real or part of the script she was trying to act out. I never cheated on you. I swear, if I did something wrong, I'm sorry, but I never crossed that line. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But trust isn't a switch. You flip back on with an apology, it's a glass paint. Once it cracks, it's never the same again. I nodded slowly and need some air. She didn't stop me as I walked out. That afternoon, I drove around for hours. I couldn't focus on anything. Every street looked unfamiliar. Every stoplight a reason to turn back or drive farther. Finally, I pulled into a small diner we used to go to when we first started dating. It was mostly empty, just me. A waitress wiping down menus, and a guy in a booth watching something on his laptop. I ordered coffee and stared out the window. I felt like I was split in two. One part of me wanted to forgive her, to chalk it up to bad judgment. Maybe he really was just a client. Maybe she was trying to handle it on her own. But the other part of me kept replaying that hug, that bench by the water, the way she had lied to my face about the florist. You don't lie to people you're honest with, not repeatedly, not without a reason. I sent Leah a message. Hey, random question. Do you know who Marcus is? He's supposedly from Claire's client team. A minute later, she replied, Marcus. No idea. Never heard that name before. I didn't respond. I went home late that night. Claire was on the couch, still dressed, eyes puffy, like she'd been crying. Where were you? She asked softly. I needed time. She nodded. Are you still going through with the wedding? I stared at her. I don't know. The next few days were a limbo. We barely spoke, only about logistics. Her parents kept calling, asking if everything was okay. I said yes. Claire said yes. We both lied, but I wasn't done searching for the truth. On Wednesday, I found out who Marcus really was. I dug into old email threads she had forwarded to me months ago. One CCD, a Marcus Landry. Different email, different domain than the marketing firm she worked with. I searched the name online. He wasn't from her London account. He was her ex, a real estate agent based in the city. Same build, same face as the guy I saw on the bench. They dated before we met. It was buried in her social posts, but the tags were there if you knew what to look for. He'd even commented on her birthday post last year, with a heart emoji, though she'd hidden it from her main timeline. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling sick. She had reconnected with an ex and lied about it multiple times. That night I didn't sleep. I just waited for morning. When the sun came up, I asked her to talk. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. No distractions, no interruptions. I know Marcus is your ex. I said. She froze. I found the old emails and your photos. Why did you lie? Claire's lips trembled, but she didn't speak right away. Then she whispered, I didn't know how to explain it. Try. She looked down. It was stupid. A few months ago, he reached out, said he was sorry for how things ended. He just wanted to talk. I agreed to meet him for coffee. That was it. I didn't tell you because I thought it was harmless and I knew how it would look. You're right. It looks like you're not ready to marry me. Her eyes snapped up. That's not true. Then why meet your ex in secret? She hesitated because I wasn't sure about everything about the wedding, about us. There it was, the truth finally. Out in the open, I never stopped loving you, she added quickly. But I got scared. It all happened so fast. Planning family's expectations. I didn't go to him for romance. I went because I was freaking out and needed clarity. and maybe part of me wanted to prove I'd moved on. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of her words crashing over me. You should have come to me. We could have talked about it. You didn't need to run to someone else. Tears streamed down her face. I know I messed up, but I haven't slept in days. I love you. I want this. I just made a mistake. Please don't let this destroy everything. I stood up and walked to the window. Out on the street, a neighbor's kid was playing catch with his dad. Normal life continuing as if mine hadn't just been turned upside down. I need time, I said. Finally. Claire came up behind me. You have it. Whatever you need, just don't walk away yet. I didn't answer because in that moment, I honestly didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew the wedding was 3 days away, and nothing felt right anymore. I didn't call off the wedding. Not immediately. Instead, I asked Claire to take a few days apart. No texts, no calls, no wedding prep. I told her I needed space to think clearly, without the sound of apologies or explanations clouding my head. She agreed. She didn't even protest. Just nodded eyes heavy and packed a small bag to stay with her friend Leah. Before she left, she turned to me in the doorway and said, "Whatever happens, I'll love you even if I don't deserve you." Then she was gone. The silence that filled the apartment afterward was suffocating. Her perfume still clung to the cushions. Her earrings still sat on the dresser. I found a handwritten note in her journal where she had been practicing her vows. Just a rough draft, barely legible in spots full of crossouts and scratched-through lines. It ended with the words, "You're the home I never thought I'd find." I read it 3 times and still didn't know what to feel. My parents called to check in. I lied. Said everything was fine. Her parents called too. I gave them the same answer, but Leah didn't buy it. That night she sent me a short text. I don't know what she did, but if it's Marcus, she told me she cut him off. She's been a wreck. Please talk to her. I didn't respond. Not yet. I spent that weekend driving up to a small town where my college roommate lived just to get away. He wasn't the advice-giving type, which is exactly why I went to him. We watched baseball, grilled food, talked about old memories. When I finally told him what happened, he didn't give me a long speech. He just said, "You don't stop loving someone overnight, but you can't build a future on sand." That stuck with me. When I got back Sunday night, I knew what I had to do. Not because it was easy, but because dragging it out would be worse. I texted Claire, "Can we meet tomorrow morning?" "Just us," she replied immediately. "Yes, name the place." I chose the lake, the same spot where I'd sat after seeing her with Marcus. It felt like the only place this conversation could happen. The next morning was gray and cool, overcast sky. A few joggers passed by, but otherwise it was quiet. She arrived right on time. Her face was pale and her eyes were ringed with tiredness, but she looked composed, not strong, just braced. We stood there for a long moment, neither of us speaking. Then I said, "I've gone over everything 100 times. Claire nodded. "So have I. I believe you didn't cheat, but I also believe you were halfway to something else. You told me you weren't sure about us. That's the part I can't forget." She looked down. I know the wedding. It's not just about a ceremony, it's a vow. A line we step over together, fully committed. And you weren't all the way there. Claire's voice was barely a whisper. I thought I was, but when I panicked, I went backward instead of forward. That's on me. I looked out at the lake. The water was still. I didn't call my parents. I said I didn't cancel the venue. Not yet, her breath caught. "Are you saying I don't want to marry someone who's still deciding?" I said. "But I also don't want to throw away 2 years without giving this a real shot at honesty." Claire took a step closer. "Then what do we do?" I looked at her, feeling the full weight of the moment. We call it off, not because we don't love each other, but because right now this isn't the foundation we want to build on. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time she didn't plead. She just nodded. "Okay, I'm not saying goodbye forever," I added, "but I am saying we need to reset. No wedding, no pressure, just space to figure out who we are, and if we can come back from this." She wiped her cheeks with the sleeve of her sweater. I'll wait as long as it takes. I didn't respond. Not with a promise. Not with a goodbye. We just stood there together for another long minute, letting the silence do what words couldn't. The next day, we called the guests, told them we were postponing the wedding indefinitely. We offered refunds, returned gifts, and answered the same question over and over. Is everything okay? We said yes, just need more time. Only a few people knew the real story, and they didn't push. Claire moved in with her sister across town. I stayed in the apartment. The first few weeks were the hardest. I kept reaching for my phone without realizing it, kept making 2 cups of coffee in the morning before remembering I was alone. But something interesting happened. The silence started to feel less suffocating. I started going for longer walks. I picked up my old guitar again, and I even called my brother, who I hadn't really talked to in months. And I thought a lot, not just about Claire, but about myself, about how I'd been so focused on planning a life that I hadn't noticed we were building it on assumptions. Claire and I texted a few times. Nothing heavy, just updates, simple check-ins. One night, she sent me a photo of the first apartment we looked at together. The caption read, "Funny how we thought that tiny place would be enough." I replied, "At least the sink didn't leak." And that was it. 3 months went by. Then, one day out of nowhere, she called. I picked up. Not sure what to expect, I got offered a job. She said, "In Portland?" I sat up. "Are you taking it?" "I think I need to just for a year. It's a fresh start, something different." I was quiet for a moment. "Do you want me to try and talk you out of it?" She laughed gently, number. "I think I want you to say it's okay." "It's okay." I said, "You should go." Another pause. Then she said, "I still think about you every day, me too." She exhaled. "Maybe someday when the dust settles." "Maybe," I said. "We didn't make promises. We didn't make plans, just 2 people, finally honest with each other, standing on the other side of something that could have broken us completely but didn't." And as I hung up the phone that night, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt something like peace, because sometimes love doesn't end in flames or in fairy tales. Sometimes it ends quietly, a choice, not a failure. And in that choice, there's still a kind of love, a love that lets go, a love that grows up, and maybe just maybe a love that finds its way back when both people are finally